Hey, it's Fred from Peavey Electronics down here in Meridian, Mississippi. Check out this next episode of Peavey Monitor featuring Ryan Bruce, aka Fluff, from Riffs and Beards YouTube channel and blackmetalbicycle.com. Check it out. Thanks for listening. So tell me a little bit about your YouTube channel. I'm a big fan. I've been watching it for a couple of years now. When did it start? How many subscribers you got? And what are you doing these days?
Oh man. So the YouTube channel kind of started haphazardly it was real late 2010, and it was just I just needed a video example to post a song. I just started home recording, and I just wanted to record some audio and have a way to show my friends. And couple of months goes by, and I'm on a guitar forum, and there's a bunch of people arguing the differences between an Audix i5 and an SM57 microphone, but hilariously none of them had both microphones, so it was all theoretical like arguing. It was on a forum, go figure, right? So I was like, well, I have both those microphones, so I made a video comparing the two, and it got 100 views, and I thought, I don't even know 100 people, like that's
That's right.
that's nuts. And I just started doing it. I loved it. And I had to learn how to shoot video, edit video, record audio, track audio, and then play guitar all at the same time.
Well, it turned out pretty good. I've watched just because of the Peavey content on there, and then I started watching other videos. Oh, it's great. It's great.
Thank you.
Love it. And what I really like about it is you tend to know what you're talking about. And that is, it's really refreshing to hear somebody when they're talking about gear that actually knows a little bit about the gear they're talking about.
I try to stick to things that I'm actually, like, I was always this guy. Like, even all the way back in the 90s, I was that gear nerd, and my circle of friends would always ask me where, it's the best bang for the buck, whatever, distortion pedal, overdrive pedal, or amp, or whatever. So, I don't know, I've always just kind of been this guy. So to me, it's just me nerding out about stuff, 5150 lineage and all that stuff. Like, Matt and Corey from Trivium, they went out and bought every single iteration of 5150 and 6505 ever made, and they started with me and my videos. Matt, they're friends of mine, and Matt was just like, dude, every time we search something, you come up, so we're just going to start asking you questions, like, blah blah, these differences, all this stuff. So, like,
they're great.
It's cool. Yeah, it's cool that people can use that kind of stuff as a resource for their own stuff, which was the whole point of all of my stuff. For me personally, I just wanted to kind of take the veil off, because that wasn't really a thing when I started doing the YouTube videos. Like, there wasn't what it is now. It's so huge and big and oversaturated in a lot of ways, but yeah,
it's still doing a great job. It's entertaining too, and half of the job about watching somebody is they got to be entertaining. They can know their gear.
Yeah. Bueller.
You do a lot of recording, right? I hear you do some producing as well.
I do. The producing stuff I do as I can, or as I have time. There's a few local punk bands. Back when I was a kid, I was in punk rock a lot, and there's a few bands around here that are really, really good. I'm in the Seattle area, and I produced a couple of records for some local bands when I have time. I'll engineer, I'll mix, I'll do vocals, I'll, just whatever. I love the recording process, and I love just all of that stuff.
And I heard recently your band got signed during the pandemic here, Dragged Under. Tell me about that.
Yeah. We put out, so a year ago, we started the band out of the ashes of our old band, and we recorded some songs. There was a snow blizzard up here in Seattle last February, and we basically got stuck in the studio. And so we had basically 5 straight days of energy drinks and Thai food and going nuts at 3:00 in the morning. And because the old band was effectively dead, we were recording things that we found interesting and fun, and that was the only purpose. That was the only criteria. And so we ended up with 4 demo songs that we were really excited about, and we just started showing our friends. Joey Bradford, our manager now, plays guitar in a band called The Used, and he was like, these are insane, these songs are amazing, let me help you guys. And like, okay, we've never had any help before. My previous bands have always been 100% DIY. We've done US tours, do it yourself. And we had help, and people were excited about the songs so much that they started pulling us up and helping us. And so many people, the Used as a band have helped us so much. So anyway, they took us out on a US tour. The Used did, starting right after NAMM, the day after NAMM ended in January. And we were on the road with them for almost 2 months. And we started in San Diego, and we went all the way around the U.S. and through the U.S. and went all the way back. And by the time we got to New York, there were like 9 labels waiting to see us. And there was a bidding war, and all of these amazing labels were really, really excited about us. But we ended up really broing down with Mascot Label Group, who we eventually just recently signed with. And they're super stoked on us, and we are so stoked on them. And it's going to be really cool. They've had Gojira and Volbeat and POD and Joe Bonamassa and like
Sure.
all these amazing artists, and they're so cool. They've been so good to us.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, let's talk a little bit about gear, which seems to be one of the subjects. Tell me a little bit about your history with Peavey. Myself, I got started playing Peavey when I was 13 years old.
Yeah.
I grew up with Peavey and as a musician, and played in a lot of garage bands and so on and so forth for the years, and had a passion for Peavey. That's how I ended up where I'm at. Tell me a little bit about your story and about Peavey.
So my story with Peavey actually starts pretty much the second I started playing guitar. I bought a kit guitar from my uncle Dennis. And it was like a homemade, but it was like a neck through. It was very, very 70s. Like it had all brass hardware, and he had a really, I don't honestly know what kind of amp it was. It was a really, really bad amp. And eventually it didn't work anymore. And my dad briefly played bass in the 70s when he was in high school, and he knew the Peavey stuff from then. I had a friend that was selling a Peavey Rage 158, the original kind with the, looks like, the popcorn, not Tolex stuff, the gray and blue. And there was, I loved that amp because it had the switchable distortion. Mm-hmm. And what I would do, and so eventually, I had that amp for about a year or two, and eventually my dad was like, you can see where the speaker plugs in, and he's into electronics, and he built computers, and he was a Unix admin at Boeing. And he was like, as long as, we don't exceed the ohms and get too low of the ohms rating, we can actually utilize an extension speaker for your combo amp.
Yeah.
And I did. I had a 115 Univox guitar cab with a Peavey Rage 158. And I had that combo for like 2 years playing in my friends' garages. And eventually I had this hilarious setup I had 6 Rages with a splitter my dad built. And it was just this wall of Peavey Rages. It was funny because the gap between a combo amp and an actual like head cabinet was very, very vast. No one had the resources back then to make that kind of leap, right? It's not like it is today where you have just everything at every price point. And so then I graduated. I think I got a Bandit 112 after that, which was one of the loudest amplifiers I have ever owned in my entire life. And eventually I wanted a head and a cabinet. So I played for a couple years. I haven't really played many shows. But when I do start playing shows, about 17, 18 years, I started playing guitar when I was 14. So by the time I turned about 17, 18 years old, I'm graduating high school, I had an uncle, a great uncle, who was actually a NASA engineer who designed the circuit board for the first lunar rover.
Cool.
He got bored at NASA and quit and formed a jazz band and went and toured for 20 years. Right? Like that's what kind of guy he was. But because he was a touring musician, and this happened in the 70s, because he was a touring musician, he chose all solid-state Peavey stuff. So my dad was like, he has some kind of a guitar amp head. I'm sure you can have it. Like, it's literally been sitting in a garage for like 20 years. And it was a Musician 400, I want to say.
Yeah.
It's like a 4-channel musician head, solid state. And I had a Boss Metal Zone, and I plugged that into a 412 cabinet that I built and put speakers in myself. And I played that for several years. I beat the hell out of it. And every time a channel would die from dropping it or spilling beer on it, then I would just move over to the next channel. And eventually I got to the last channel, and then it died. But it was really cool. It's the only amp I've ever seen that has the high and low, bass, middle, and treble controls. It was really, really crazy. And I remember just being able to get any sound we wanted out of that head.
Yeah, well, we actually at Peavey have been looking at a lot of that old school technology that we did in the 70s and 80s. And I think you're going to be impressed with some of the things that are coming out pretty soon.
That stuff was just so ahead of its time and reliable. And so let's see. So when I was 16, I remember walking in. So I took guitar lessons for about 6 months out of this music store in Federal Way, Washington. And I remember the day they got the 5150 combos, which came out a few years after the heads, I believe.
Yep.
They got the combo, and I remember them opening it up, and they plugged it in, and it was the greatest sound I'd ever heard in my life. It was like everyone was huddled around this combo, and they couldn't believe how much gain this amplifier had.
Yeah.
6 stages. I mean, nothing. I think that was the first amp that ever had that many gain stages, if I'm not mistaken.
And it was a big trick to get it that way too. We had to use a whole bunch of tricks, including in the 5150 head, which is now the 6505. We use parallel axis geometry on the tubes, which is actually a patent. A lot of people don't know anything about that, but the tubes are horizontal instead of vertical in there to reduce the microphonics of the amplifier. And the way that they're put in there, and the combination of the cables has a lot to do with how that amplifier sounds. So there's been some competition lately that have brought out some similar amplifiers, but they're missing a few of the important points on the build of that amp. Originally.
So there was that. I mean, my history is sprinkled so much with Peavey stuff. So when I started gigging with my first real serious band, one of our buddy bands he had his 5150, and we didn't know the difference even then, even in my early, my late teens. I still didn't know that an amplifier by itself with no pedals could produce that much gain. And we are friends of ours that were in a metal band, and one of their guitars had a 5150, and he used to huck this thing into the back of their trailer. Yeah. And it was the most stressful. We're just like, what are you doing? Like, this is this pristine 5150. And he would just toss it in the back, and it was always just fine. And he plugged straight into that amp, and it sounded like the finger of God. Like, it was just unbelievable. And so then, what's that?
A lot of metal albums are recorded with that amp.
I mean, all of the good ones are. Yeah, for sure. So then I was like, okay, well, I have to get one of those. And I was able to find on Craigslist a 5152, which was the first time I owned a 5150. And I still dearly, dearly regret. I was a kid, I was broke, I had rent to pay, I was starving, and eventually I had to sell it. And I so regret selling that amp, because it is different than a 5150. But it's from the same lineage, and I miss that amp so much. And then over the years, I'd get a 6505, and then like a lot of my favorite bands that I would see live were playing 6505s. And then Unearth's Oncoming Storm came out, and the Killswitch Engage stuff, and like the new wave of American metal stuff came out, and those were all 5150, with a Maxon OD808 in front of it. And
that's right.
It was just such a fresh tone. And I was a big Alice in Chains nut, being from Seattle, and I was a grunge kid, and Jerry Cantrell used one on the tripod Alice in Chains record for like Sludge Factory and stuff. And so yeah, I've owned and played so many 5150s and 6505s and 6534s, which is probably in my top 5 favorite amps of all time.
Oh, I love that. I'm disappointed that amp didn't catch on like the 6505 did.
Same.
And EL34s are the sound for me for metal. I mean, I love the way that they sound. Tell me a little bit about your favorite tubes and some of that too, because a lot of gear guys really haven't had the chance to AB6L6s with EL34s in the same amplifier, but it makes a difference.
Makes a huge difference, especially in the feel as well. I mean, one could argue that you could just use the EQ, but it's not the same. The interaction with the speakers and the preamp sections aren't the same. Some amps really thrive on a particular amplifier. Interestingly enough, like a 5150 or a 6505 or 6534, like those amps, they sound like themselves no matter what tubes you put into them. EL34s, the new production stuff's cool. I really like the old stuff. However, a lot of stuff's expensive and hard to find. But like the last really, really good production tubes that are no longer made, sadly, are the Wing C stuff. That was just phenomenal. Their EL34s had this just the big, giant, throaty mid-range, and oh man, along with their 6L6s as well. But I like EL34s most of the time. I've had, my buddy Keith Merrow down in Portland has this unbelievable 5150 that it's been modded to have its KT88s on the outside and EL34s in the middle. So it's getting like this upper mid-range vibe, but with this really crystal clear bottom end, and it just sounds, it's just this magical tone. I don't know what he had done to it, but he has so many amplifiers, and he always goes back to that 5150 that he got when he was 16 years old. So
let's talk about the Invective. We sent you a couple of those to check out at some point. You did great videos of them. We really appreciate that.
Yeah,
Tell me a little bit about that. That's kind of the evolution, the big Invective 120 of the 6505 in a lot of ways.
I think the Invective really is kind of for me, it was kind of a sonic bridge between old and new for me. It had the classic tonal characteristics of a 5150, but it had modern features, things like a noise gate and a very, very nice boost and a very, very nice clean channel, which is something that the original 5150 didn't really have.
That's right.
It was okay. It was usable, but obviously if you're getting a 5150 for the clean channel, you're probably getting it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
But the Invective is a really, really cool amp. The mini amp is great as well. Actually, all of the mini amps that you guys have put out have been really, really awesome. I remember being blown away by playing, I think, what was the first production 6505 MH.
Yeah, in fact, it's still one of our best sellers, the 6505 MH, and it was really difficult making that thing sound like its big brother, obviously, because there's half as many tubes in the 6505 MH as there is in the big brother. So getting that gain to sound like it's the 6505 head was a trick, but we did it. And we did it. You can listen to it at the house, record at 3 a.m. with nobody listening to you.
Yeah.
It sounds phenomenal. And we still sell a ton of those amps. We're really proud of it.
And as you should be. That was the EL84. So back to power tubes or back to tube types. EL84s traditionally for me, I instantly go, no, I don't want. I like big bottle. I like the big power, and too many small amplifiers. Like when they try to downsize something, you lose so much of the low end and the resonance of in an EL84, and you guys just totally circumvented that. You put the resonance control in there, and it was just like, oh, okay, this makes total sense. And it's just
talk about that for a second. The resonance control, that was a Peavey patent, and it started on the original 5150. Now it's on just about all of our metal amps, including 6505 Invective. That's a huge feature. The resonance control, controlling the movement of the speaker at different volume levels is key to get chug without cranking the amp up to ear bleed level. Yeah.
So the resonance back in the day, so like when you first start, the very first time you plug into a 5150 or a 6505, you instantly just want to crank it, even if you're into a 412, even if you're at band volume, which you shouldn't do if you're listening to this. Don't instantly crank it to 10. But a lot of people don't realize what that is there for is, like the lower the volume, the higher you can typically crank the resonance, and that's compensating for the lack of air that's not being moved from the volume of the speakers pushing. And that was so brilliant. And kudos to James Brown for his magic that he worked with that amplifier and the Triple X and just a whole bunch of other amplifiers.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me your favorite Peavey story. You know, I've been playing in bands and gears falling off of buses and trucks, and you know, there's all these different types of stories. Or tell me your favorite Peavey story, running into somebody at Peavey or talking to Hartley. I know you've had a chance to talk to him at some point.
Oh, Hartley's a gas. He's so humble and amazing, and I just I was really taken aback because I mean I'm not anyone special. He's Hartley, like the things that he has done for the music industry, CNC machining with introducing computer program stuff, the guitars back in the late 70s. The list goes on and on and on. Like, that guy is a legend for a reason. And people kept trying to come up to him. I think they were, business folks from Peavey. They needed his attention on stuff. He was like, "Nope, we're having a conversation right now. Go away." Like that meant a lot to me. And it was just really, really cool using the products basically my entire playing life. And then he was just like, just shooting the breeze. Like, it was so awesome. Okay, favorite Peavey story. We had a van. Okay, I was a kid. I was probably 16, 17. This is that Musician 400 head. And someone I had to pick up. The other guys had a van. Well, most of the stuff wouldn't fit in the van, so I had a pickup truck, a little Toyota pickup truck. They didn't lock the gate. And my head was the very last to go in, closest to the gate. And we hit a speed bump, and I hear the gate go down, and I look in my side view mirror, and that 400 head is doing end over end, 25 miles an hour, boom, 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 goes off into the side, and I am horrified because I think, okay, well, my amp's done. Because how could it not be? It was pretty cosmetically messed up. It was, the Tolex was just all messed up, but it was fine. It didn't care at all. Being solid state, thank God. If that was a tube head, that would have been a different story. But it was fine. It was totally fine. And I fired it up, plugged into it, and used it for the next six months or a year after that.
Yeah, you don't know how many stories I hear like that. And it is really, Peavey is a small group of guys. I think you've met everybody at Peavey, really, that it is in the engineering and product department. Small group of guys. Everyone here is a musician. That's how we all ended up here, is because we were not very good at being rock stars. We're fortunate enough to be in the industry, which is cool. But and we're all passionate about making good gear. Right now we're working on some new amplifiers that I'm really excited to show you and the rest of the world.
Can't wait.
Man, I can't wait to get them out either. So we're going to have some new instruments too. I think you're going to dig them when you see them. Yeah, we've been working on this stuff for a couple of years now. And it's about time for the world to see some new gear from Peavey. I'm really excited to get it to you.
When I'm going to put you on the spot here, when are you guys going to make a proper issue of like the T40 stuff, T40 bass and T40 guitars, man? Come on.
Funny you should mention that.
Dude.
Stay
those,
tuned.
well,
I'm
awesome.
I'm a huge fan of super ferrite pickups. Now,
okay.
A lot of people that are probably watching this have no idea what I'm talking about. But the first time I picked up a Peavey bass that had a super ferrite pickup in it, I was blown away. I mean, it was, I said, where's the battery? Is this thing active? I mean, it's just loud. It sounds like an active pickup. It's passive. Yeah. And I turned to Hartley and I said, well, why did you quit making this? He said, well, nobody bought it. The people quit buying it. And I said, well,
fair. That's fair.
Way ahead of its time. Way ahead of its time. So that there are some things that we did back then that were the right things to do that we shouldn't have abandoned so easily. I mean, sometimes you just gotta, if you got something that's great, you just gotta keep at it and keep at it and keep at it until the rest of the world catches on that it's cool. But man, we've got some exciting things happening. When you're talking about T-Series gear, there's a lot of great things about the old T-Series. One of them that wasn't so great was the weight of the thing. I mean, you'd have back problems today if you put it on for.
True, but come on. I mean, I like a heavy guitar, although those, to be fair, like,
all right,
those were crazy though. Those were really, really heavy.
Yeah, well, the heavier the guitar, the better it was going to sound, so.
And then let's see, any chance of ever reissuing the VTM? I'm putting you on the spot. See, that's it's unfair of me. I know.
Hey, I think in some form that amplifier has a good chance of
that
life.
Soundgarden, dude. Like,
well, there's a couple of other. I mean, there's a whole bunch of bands right now that are happening that are using old Peavey gear right now.
Yeah, I know.
We are paying. Yeah. So there's going to be the cool stuff that I want to hear from our customers. I mean, more than anything, if we've got a home run, I want to hear about it. If something sucks, I want to hear about it. Or somebody's got an idea to make something better, we need to hear it at Peavey, because all we're trying to do is make a better mousetrap, and do a better job. And Peavey is still making gear for the working musician. That's been our philosophy forever. We try to pay attention to the people that are out there that are gigging musicians. And gigging musicians, let's face it, they're not exactly the wealthiest people in the world, right? I was there, it's a struggle. So we're always mindful of making great gear at a reasonable price, and making great gear that's better than gear that's twice the price. We never sacrifice and try to make something cheap. That's not what we're about. But we try to make the best gear we can, keeping in mind the people that are buying it and using it. Are people like that?
Yeah.
So,
always.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, I really appreciate your time. Tell me one more thing, though. I can't let you go before I understand what a black metal bicycle is all about. Like black metal chef, or what's going on there?
Okay, so it's a slightly funny story. It's not really that funny, but I just needed a name to put out stuff, and I needed a name for the website at the time. And I'm a huge fan of a band called Cancer Bats. And Jay, their bass player, actually bought 3 70s T40 basses, and he tours with those all over the world, sweats them out. That was a not applicable side story to what I'm telling you this, but they had a song called Black Metal Bicycle on their album at the time. Now, that was simply, I found out later that was just named after Liam the Singer's messenger bike, because he was a messenger in Vancouver, Canada. I read that as black metal bicycle. Like, for some reason in my brain, it was like this real serious metal musician with corpse paint having to ride a bike to work or something like that. Like,
that's how I read it too.
It really kind of, it was very anti-tough, serious, and that was kind of like, that's kind of just how I live my life. So I just thought, that's really, really cool, and I liked it. And I was totally off on what they meant by it, but I stuck with it anyway, and I got the permission to use it anyway. So that's awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Fluff, this was an amazing interview, and I appreciate you supporting Peavey. I can't wait to do our new gear, and Hartley really appreciates it too. He's right down the hall right now after 54 years doing this. Well, tell him I say hello, and thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks again. All right, dude. See ya.